Hey everyone, this is Mayan Gordon, owner of Mayan Gordon Media. We are back live at 5, and I have a really fantabulous guest for you guys today. His name is Eric Okon, and he is going to talk to us a little bit about family business, a little bit about the car business. But first, you guys know what to do. Please go ahead and comment something in the comment section, one thing or multiple things that you guys are grateful for today. Today, I am very, very grateful that the tree that kind of broke off close by to our house did not fall on our car or any of our neighbors' cars. It is an incredibly windy day here in Spokane. And typically each year there are a couple windy days and some tree limbs will break off in any which way direction. And luckily this time it did not hit any of our vehicles. So could you go ahead and introduce yourself, Eric? Kind of how would you describe who you are as a person?
Sure. Well, my name is Eric Okon, and I am from New York. I live on Long Island, New York, Long Island with that accent. And I help run my family's business. We run a global transportation company that transports executives, celebrities, and Fortune 500 companies, studios, and whatnot. Recently, about a year ago, my brother and I started a podcast called Okon Bros Podcast, which is really a labor of love. It really is just something that and Mayan was inspiration to keep going forward and whatnot as well. With that, it's been amazing for business, and it's been amazing to be able to talk and not have to say and it just trains you so well at the art of conversation. When you have to go live or you're interviewing people, you really become conscious of what you're saying.
That is so true. If you don't mind me jumping in real quick. Ahead. I think a great way, and I just said because it's something that you don't get perfect at. I think probably for a very, very long time. I've been doing live streaming for a good number of years through Instagram. Really just this is my first year doing it on LinkedIn and multicasting to Facebook and YouTube. But it's something where I noticed that some days I'll have really great days. I feel like, man, I crushed it today. And other days my mind is a whirl because I had so much other things going on. And I noticed that I really could have improved a lot. So it is something you become much more conscious of, not only in the actual podcast, but that consciousness really translates, like Eric was saying, to your day-to-day conversations, where you start analyzing afterwards, how did that conversation go? What could I have done better within that conversation? And that translates so well into business.
Yeah. And that was the whole point behind the podcast. And the podcast, it's so hard to not self-promote. Right. When you first get into social media and you first get into podcasting, all you want to do is talk about yourself. All you want to do is say, I have this, use me. And that chases people away. And to be able to give people value when you are you have to be entertainment. And when you start looking at yourself that way, that's when you start succeeding in building an audience. And in a roundabout way, people will find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they're interested.
And I think a really interesting thing about a podcast specifically, but definitely content creation in general, is you never know who's listening. Yep. You never know who's watching. You might have had an episode where you look at your stats and you're like, man, only 100 people in the last 24 hours saw that.
Yep.
And 3 of those 100 people were really important people who want to give you a really big opportunity, who really liked what you had to say, even though your numbers weren't incredibly huge. So it's a really fun game, I would say, of thinking about really what is the value I can create in that podcast, not how many people is that podcast reaching. Because if you've got a little bit of value, it can go a very long way.
All you need the right people. And, we run a B2B business. And it's very hard to crack that code on how can you create content for a B2B business without constantly selling.
Right.
And what we learned, and it goes back to what our parents taught us many, many years ago, because they created the business 50 years ago. We have 11 locations across the United States. Pre-COVID, we had right around 700 employees. Unfortunately, COVID affects travel greatly. Right. So we had to scale back. Right now, we're at about 150 employees, and that's growing every single day. But the point is that now when my brother and I are creating content, we can go into a meeting, and this has happened, where we don't know the people, but they know us. And that's because we already connected with them on LinkedIn, and we're pushing out 4, 5, 6 different pieces of content a day on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And then all of a sudden they know you, and the ice is already broken. And that's real life. And that's what I want to help people with, that you run a family business, you run a small business, you have to be your own best advocate with creating content. And that could be with the written word, that could be with video, that can be just having a podcast if you're afraid to get in front of camera. It can be posting pictures of your kids. People connect with you, not your business. There's a reason why there's not that many pages that are successful for company pages, right? Because people don't want to connect with a company. People want to connect with the person that they're using. Because a lot of the times they're not using my company BLS. They're using me, or they're using my brother, or they're using my mom, or they're using Vinny, our VP, or they're using Carl. They're using those people because we take care of them. And you can't get lost that you have to have a personal touch in everything that you do. What's up, Michael?
Absolutely. And we got a bunch of people watching in on this live episode. What's up, Jordan, Angel, Lucinda, and Latasha? Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I've got a bunch of questions already just from the first things you've said.
Sure, go for it.
Let's go back. What was it like growing up in a family where your parents had already established a business? Is it just you and your brother? Do you have other siblings? Did you grow up in New York? Kind of paint us a bit of a picture of what it was like.
Sure. So my bro and I grew up in the family business from the minute I was born. My mom was dispatching cars for a premiere the night that I was born. And, you know, to say that I have limos in my blood would be an understatement. And it's all about, so growing up, it was, let me just get my train of thought here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So growing up in our family business was unique because instead of going to summer camp, we would go to LA, and Michael and I would hang out in a hotel when my parents would go and build the company out on the West Coast. And my brother just said The Dark Crystal was the movie premiere that my mom was dispatching that night when I was born. So, you know, these are all real stories. And coming into a family business, my brother and I always thought that, like, how amazing would it be if my parents recorded everything that they were doing, right? Would have been so amazing to have a fly on the wall in 1978 when they were having that conversation where my dad says, I'm going to go buy a car and I'm going to hustle the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Well, my brother and I would always say, man, we wish we would start a business and we can start from the ground up. Be careful what you wish for, because we actually got that opportunity. We got the opportunity because COVID decimated the entire travel industry. So we're starting from ground zero. And we're documenting it, and we're documenting it every step of the way. We have podcasts weekly, we take pictures, we have interviews, and it's been so amazing. What I think is the most amazing part is having a legacy for our kids. And that brings me to that my brother and I are the only ones involved. My brother and I are the only siblings. And
how far apart are you in age?
5 years. Michael's 5 years older than I am. And we have 4 children between the two of us. So we have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
And are you part of the business already?
100%. 100%. But that's, you know, like, we wouldn't have it any other way, you know, and the way you do that is you make it fun, you make them feel important, and you don't say, you know, the adults are talking now. You make them part of the conversation no matter what they're going to say. Right.
Cool. So I was just going to ask, and it kind of answered my question there, but were there any points where you really didn't want to be a part of the business, or was it something always that just seemed like so much fun? It sounds like your parents did a really good job of involving you guys in a way where you did want to be a part of the business.
You know, my brother and I would always do kind of offshoots where we'd say, you know, oh, let's go and try and build something. We tried making, actually, when Napster was out, we created a company called Jeanster, and we bought Jeanster.com, and we thought we were going to go and sell jeans. So we went in and we went to the buyer's district in Manhattan, and we went to go buy 7 jeans.
I have to ask.
Because I bought the domain. Because I found the domain. I found Jeanster.com and I found Jewelster.com. So I figured we would, you know, it all seems so easy, right? It's not.
Right.
So we bought $25,000 worth of jeans, and I start taking pictures on mannequins, and this was whenever Napster was out, so this was probably late 90s, and we didn't sell one pair of jeans.
Right. Wow. So you have jeans for life. I'm just kidding.
No, they didn't fit us. The jeans that we bought didn't fit us. But the funny part, the cool part was that we actually were able to sell to somebody who did go and run it for a long time.
Oh,
so
we
cool. we actually broke even on that deal. But
that's pretty good for a failed business to break even.
And so what that comes down to is that, don't quit your day job. You have to do what you know. Right. And that's what we stuck to. And, to meet girls, right? That's why we went into the jeans business. Actually, we went to the city. I remember we would try and hire models and stuff like that. But I wasn't going to bring that up, Michael.
And then we have a great question here from Raquel. Is this something that, as you're documenting, you're actively sharing on a daily basis? Are you kind of saving some of the content for later down the road to release? What does that look like in terms of documentation live. With distribution?
It's live. I don't have patience. So that's just my style, to take a picture, write a caption, post it. Mike, this was a great thing that happened. Let's go record. Let's go live. We don't like dilly-dallying. We just like getting the show on the road and posting content. And because it basically expires in 24 hours, right? Whatever you're going to post, it's the first 24 hours that really matters, maybe 48 hours, and then you have to move on and things change. One of the things I hate doing is recording and then waiting 2 weeks to release it, because sometimes the information is a little out of date. Sometimes you're talking about what's going on at that very moment. So we always go.
That's why live is so great. I love the new live really takeover that's happened with social media and just content in general. There's so much more live content available than 5 years ago. I don't even know if 10 years ago there was really live content outside of live TV. In these days, there's just so much content you can find live on so many different platforms.
My brother and I went live twice so far. I finally got LinkedIn live. It took me 8 months. I remember I messaged you a while. Yes. Yeah, I messaged you a while back to say, how'd you do it? And you're like, just keep trying, and that's what I did. So we went live once, just on LinkedIn only, and it was good. And actually, for the first time in my life, I created a Facebook profile.
Wow, you held out a long time.
Last Sunday, a week from today.
And
a week
how
ago.
Are you liking
it? It's amazing. And I've become a little disheartened with the reach on LinkedIn because it's so inconsistent. I have 9,000 connections on here, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, and it gets so hard and frustrating to do that. But let me tell you something. Facebook makes LinkedIn look like a morgue.
Really?
For me. That's my opinion. Do you go on Facebook Live?
Yeah, we are streaming to Facebook right now, both my personal profile and then into 2 groups that I have created. Awesome. The groups are very small, but I think if you focus in the beginning on the numbers, you're always going to be pretty disheartened. Like, the numbers are always going to be pretty small starting out, unless you kind of hit it big. Like, obviously, I'm not going to say lucky on TikTok, but I was fortunate on TikTok where my numbers
TikTok's amazing. Yeah, you're a phenom on there. I mean, what you did on TikTok is, but I noticed that you do it again.
Experience, right? It's not what I expected. It just happened to be a blessing in disguise more than it was something I was aiming for. So if you're aiming for these big, crazy numbers, you're going to be disheartened a lot of the time, versus if you're just aiming to get your message out to the people who it's going to bring value to, that's where you can really find, I think, a lot of motivation in it.
Yeah. Facebook it's intimate, and people are on there all day long. So when you post, I posted what did I post? I said an iPhone chart. Why isn't an iPhone charger called Apple Juice? Right.
Oh,
I thought that was pretty funny, right? And I have 9,000 followers on LinkedIn and 1,000 on Facebook in a week.
Right.
And Facebook was like that.
Well, share with us, how did you get 1,000 Facebook followers in a week?
By building my connections out, by going with people where if they had more than 20 like-minded friends, I'm connecting with you.
Gotcha.
And you just connect, just reaching out. Yeah. I don't have that type of an audience that people are going to come and find me yet. So I find them.
Very cool. And are you messaging and communicating with these people? Are they mostly looking at and engaging with your posts? What's kind of the interaction? Obviously, it's only been a week, but what's kind of the interaction that you've seen so far from Facebook?
The interaction's been there's been a lot of engagement, and it's been really, really good. I think that you connect with your clients on there, you connect with your family, you connect with their friends, you connect with your friends, and then you connect with their friends and their business associates and people like that. And it's a very engaged community. And I think the biggest key for me for creating engagement is asking a question.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. If you can, you can come up with some, really romantic saying, or you can say, something that's really brilliant. But if you're not going to ask a question, people aren't going to engage with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and this is really true of almost any platform, really every single platform I've ever been on, you will always get more engagement if you ask a question, because then you're inviting people in to be a part of the conversation. You're not just talking at them, you're talking to and with them. And it's much more powerful. I would say also, Facebook is one of the platforms where I spend the least amount of time, yet for me, it probably has one of the biggest upsides. And it's almost because it's too good at the engagement, where people really want to have very long conversations. Once you start talking with someone, they will keep talking and keep talking. And that can be a wonderful, wonderful thing. For me, I'm trying to scale out certain parts of my business, build up certain things. I have limited time to be able to have, I would say, long conversations with people. But I think if you're starting out, that's one of the best things you could possibly have. And Facebook is probably one of the best places to have real, genuine, deep, emotionally connected conversations with people.
Yes.
Very easily. Very easily. Absolutely.
100%.
So I've got another question for you. Sure. What are some of, we're kind of going to talk about COVID a little bit here. Sure. What are some of the biggest trials and tribulations, as Raquel was kind of pointing out, that you guys have faced during this time, not only as, let's say, a family business, but just in terms of the travel industry, and maybe give us a little bit more context on, what exactly you said, limo services, like transportation services, maybe a little bit more context on what exactly, is that an hourly thing? Is it something people are hiring you on a monthly basis? What did that look like?
Yeah, I'll explain everything. To answer Raquel's question directly, yes, we share everything on our podcast, Okon Bros. And I think that's extremely important, that we share the good news and we share the bad news, because that creates likability and that creates realness. And we're not just going to share good news. We share when things are bad. And we started podcasting about 2 weeks into when COVID started hitting. We resumed podcasting about 2 weeks into COVID when that started hitting, and we started talking about how we had to lay off people, how we're in search of money, how we're still in search of more money to help keep the company going and stuff like that. While we are healthy, one of our core philosophies that has gotten us through COVID, and this was thanks to my parents, one of our core business philosophies is that wherever we operate, we always buy the real estate that we're operating out of. And that has bailed us out time and time and time again, because it creates equity. And when you don't have business and you need to borrow money, you have to have assets to borrow against. Yeah. And that's why we went and we bought real estate. So regarding COVID and travel, this is my day job. This is what I talk about, all day long when I'm not creating content. And I believe that we are there's a lot of questions. Are travel agents going to get hired again? Are people going to be traveling the way that they did again? And I firmly believe 110%. And the reason why is we survived the plague. Right. We survived the plague as a species. We are an adaptable species that survives anything. We will survive COVID. We will fly again. We will travel again. You're going to be going out to restaurants without a mask on. We will find a way through it, even though right now it may not feel like it.
Right.
And that has to be looked at from the forest from the trees. Right. You have to look at a really high level overview of that everything will be okay, even though it's really painful right now. I think that the type of travel that we do is very nuanced. So there is Uber, which a lot of people, not familiar with who we are like to compare us to, but Uber is a taxi replacement. We are not a taxi service. We handle very nuanced types of travel where clicking a button does not make that travel happen. It's someone booking it on behalf of somebody else. It comes in, there's duty of care, which means, proper insurance. It means so many things that corporations will value because they have the responsibility to transport their employees safely. And that is what we do. We transport employees and important people safely from point A to point B. That's done with duty of care, like I mentioned, and that's done with duty of health and safety. And with that in mind, we disinfect the cars multiple times a day. We have dividers put up in the vehicles in between the driver and the passenger. So it's a really detailed type of business where the details matter. The details matter more than anything in what we do.
So it's basically a much higher level of transportation service than is just available almost anywhere else.
Like. It's negotiated rates. It's creating travel programs where only senior vice presidents and above are available to use this type of vehicle. Anyone who is a director and below can only travel after 8 p.m. And there's a lot of different variables that are involved with running ground travel for corporations, with partnering up with private aviation companies and providing the people that they transport the same experience on the ground. None of our cars are older than 2 years old. Our chauffeurs are trained. It's a very labor intensive business. It's a very one-to-one business. And anytime you have a one-to-one service, that becomes expensive. And that brings me back to what Uber has done, where they tried to make a one-to-one business not expensive.
Right.
And in my opinion, that has failed miserably, where you can't go for $5 for a ride. It just doesn't work like that. You can't go for $10. You can't go for $20. And the reason why Uber got so big was because they would pay the drivers more money than they would take in. And that's why Uber was losing billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's a broken business model. There's a reason why Uber didn't exist before Uber. Because it doesn't work.
Absolutely. And I kind of have a question. So have you discovered any new markets during kind of this whole process? Or is it something where how are you making adjustments as people have stopped, traveling from these corporations and are working more at home?
It's all about education. It's educating the travel managers. It's educating the procurement people that it will be safe to travel again. And here are the steps that we took. We doubled down on customer service and saying that we're going to take care of our customers. And luckily, because we're very heavily involved in the entertainment industry, we're doing okay, because the minute they were able to, they have to start filming movies again. Right. So Hollywood is the first ones out on the road, because I don't know about you, but Netflix and iTunes and stuff was all getting pretty boring. So, they had to start filming again. And we know for a fact that we started a production in Vegas about 6 weeks ago. And that production actually premiered a week ago. So that's how fast they're pushing out content.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
The whole studio system.
So I'd like to ask you a bit more about kind of family dynamics, because it sounds like you guys have a pretty well-oiled system, so to speak. What, if you had to give tips to, let's say, other people who are involved in family businesses or work with another family member, what are some things that stick out to you as things that you guys have done that have either prevented conflict, resolved conflict quickly? Like, what makes that run so smoothly for you guys?
Well, another core philosophy is we promote that you have to double down on what you're good at, right? I'm not going to go and ask my brother to edit a podcast. He's not going to be good at that. But he may not ask me to go and stand up in front of a room of 40 people to give a speech. So it's all about doing what you are good at. And I think as long as if you're working with somebody and you say, okay, you know what, you're really good at making websites, and I'm really good at finances. That's how we should separate our duties. And listen, of course, a lot overlaps. Just because I'm better at technology doesn't mean Michael doesn't have input. And just because Michael, he always makes the comparison of Michael's David Lee Roth. He's the showman. And then I'm more of the Van Halen. I'm making the music in the background. And neither of those people could exist. That band couldn't exist without each other. And I think that's the dynamic that we push. And we push that with all of our employees, that we're not going to go and put somebody who's an amazing dispatcher and go put them into sales.
Right.
They're going to fail.
Right.
And, we're not going to go and put we're not going to go and put in the mechanic and go make him answer phones.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work. So separating the duties out and then recognizing what you're good at and just go for it. Double down on what you are good at.
That's awesome. I think that's such great advice for businesses in general. I know that, or at least I've noticed in my past, experiences when I've tried to have partnerships that didn't work out well, there was a lot of, hey, could you do this thing that I really didn't want to do because it's not the thing I'm good at. And I love doing things I'm good at. And I think this is true of most people. The thing you're really good at is also typically the thing that you enjoy doing the most.
Right.
And when you start getting asked to do things that you don't want to do, that you're also not good at, there becomes this tension and this level there of animosity almost, of why did you ask me to do this? I'm not good at it. You're asking me to take on the responsibility for something that I don't feel capable of accomplishing to the level of expertise that I hold myself to. And that
right.
can really be something that kind of, breaks whatever relationship has been built, no matter how strong that relationship was. And in my more recent partnership, especially with Jesse Johnson, who's an amazing, amazing partner, anytime I bring up an issue of, I'm getting really stressed in this area, we always, and he always comes back to, well, what can we do so that you get to spend more time focusing on the thing that you're really good at and that you're really excited about? And we always come up with a solution to whatever that problem is, whether we have someone else take on that responsibility, whether we delegate that responsibility to a piece of software. There's always a solution these days, I think, to allowing people to stay in their strength zones. So
right.
For you guys, what has that mainly looked like? Has that mainly looked like hiring out people who are really strong in that particular area? Or has it been, have you looked at software? How big is software and tools and digital in your field, in your business?
I mean, it's software and technology is huge. I mean, it assists the person with doing a better job. And I think automation looks really good on paper. But why does Google have 200,000 employees? If they're so good at automation, why do they have so many employees? Why does Apple and Walmart and all these places that have billions and billions and billions of dollars? It's because we still need people. And, that's my thought on that. As far as how we bring on people into our business, yeah, of course, we will hire people that are good at what they do. We will hire salespeople that are sharks, that are very adept at what they do to go and close the deal. That's the name of the game. You're nothing without help from people.
Absolutely. So as we close this up, what are some pieces of advice or just some thoughts that you'd like to leave people with from all of your experiences working in a family business and around family dynamic, around working in, honestly, quite a large business? I think, you have one of the larger businesses out of people who I've had as guests on my podcast. Are there certain nuances that come with having a larger business as compared to a smaller business? And kind of, what are some thoughts that you'd like to leave people with?
I think bigger business equals bigger problems. And, you won't get anything that you can't handle, and you just have to take it a step at a time. And I think truly partnering with people, partnering with your vendors, partnering with the people that help you is where you're going to succeed. And asking for help. I asked you for help for a few things because I saw that you were successful. Success leaves clues. 100%. And I think that you have to follow what successful people have done and copy it.
I
And
love that.
that's a big thing as to what we do. I follow what my parents did. I follow what fellow industry people have done. And that is that's probably would want to be my parting words, is that success leaves clues.
That's awesome. And I just want to echo what you just said around the more successful you get, the more help you need. You don't need less help when you become really successful. And as I find myself coming into a new area of success in my life, I find myself more wanting and more in need of other people's help and expertise in areas where they have 20 years of success and experience in. And I am brand new to that area of success, because there is so much to learn in every area of life that you can't possibly learn it all at once or learn all of it very well, period. And a lot of the times when you ask for help, it's not just going to be in the context of, can you help me learn this? It's going to be, can you help me figure out how I can do this, or how someone else can help me do this? And that's where I've found that asking for help can really bring with it beautiful gifts. Maybe you're asking for help for someone to teach you something, and in the end, they help by doing it for you, or they help by connecting you with someone who really is now your partner and your teammate in a way that you never expected. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing all of this really interesting info. Where can people, listen to your podcast?
Sure.
How do people find you and find more information about you?
Sure. Please look up Okon Bros. We're on all the platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. The biggest platform that we like to push is, because we love video, is obviously YouTube. So look up Okon Bros on YouTube. And we're always very active on LinkedIn. Look me up, Eric Okon, on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. And Facebook, Eric Okon, same thing. We're an open book, and I think we have a pretty interesting story to share. And on our podcast is basically that. We talk about running a family business. We talk about law of attraction. We talk about basically anything that interests us. We interview a lot of interesting people. We've interviewed you, Mayan. You were actually one of our first interviews.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe even the second, if I remember correctly. Pretty early one.
Yeah. And believe it or not, this for me, this is a learned skill. Right, coming out and monologuing and being able to answer questions. I was always behind the scenes, but I made a conscious effort to not be an introvert and become an extrovert. So this is a learned skill for me, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to get up and talk. Absolutely,
I think that's really important to say, and for me, absolutely the same, because I'm sure there's people watching who think, "But you're such a natural." I wish I could be a natural just like you, Eric, because I get that comment all the time.
Right.
And all I can tell people is I used to be so scared of people. I would make my husband answer every phone call because I was terrified to talk to them on the phone. And it is absolutely a learned skill that anyone, literally anyone, can achieve. It just takes practice, and it just takes facing your fear with action. And taking those steps.
You have to be yourself, and you have to talk about what you know. Don't talk about what you don't know. Stay focused. You have to have a bag of tricks. You have to have an arsenal of things that you have to talk, that that you can talk about. It's pretending like you're going out to dinner with somebody. What would you talk about with them at dinner? And that's what you have to talk about if you ever want to go on a podcast. Stick to what you know.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is you have to be okay with the fact that if you do mess it all up and you fail horribly in a conversation, it's not the end of the world, and that person is not going to remember it forever and tell everyone you know. It really is much, much smaller in reality than you're going to make it feel in the beginning. I can't count how many awful conversations where initially I felt like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said those things, or I can't believe how stupid I sounded. And I don't remember what those conversations were. I'm certain that the other people don't remember either.
Yeah, Michael and I, we look back at our podcasts and we'll review it, or our wives will watch it, or our mother will watch it, and she'll be like, you really shouldn't have said that. Don't say that in the future. And you have to use that as a learning example, because words are weapons. So you have to be very, very careful with what you say, how you say it. And if you don't know what to say, it's okay to have a long pause to think about and gather your thoughts. There's nothing bad about that. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. In fact, sometimes it really can make you seem very thoughtful, or it can come off actually very, very well when you take a moment gather your thoughts versus kind of blubbering out nonsense that you then regret and, feel like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for coming on here. This was really, really fun. I learned a lot in this episode. I hope you guys did too. If you did, please go ahead, grab the link, share it to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that you like to live. Let's get this information out to more people. I really do think that there's a ton of value here and that a lot more people can learn from Eric and his brother and his family business. So I hope to see you guys again tomorrow night and have a wonderful rest of your day or night, depending on where you're watching from.
Thank you, Mayan.